So my name's Rhys. I work for Airbus in Newport, over in that foreign land we call Wales, and I'm an engineer there. I'm also a broadcaster, a science and engineering broadcaster on a number of radio stations around the world. And today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what I do at Airbus, and specifically about the route that I took to get there. Now, growing up, I've got two younger sisters, and one of those sisters, the middle child, was very lucky. We were all lucky, by the way. That's not meant to be a reflection on biased parenting, but she was very lucky because she knew exactly what she wanted to do. She knew from a very young age that she wanted to be a doctor, and so she knew what she needed to study, how long her degree was going to take, where she needed to apply, what her focus needed to be to get to where she wanted to be. And she's now done that. She's qualified as a doctor just last year, and she's achieved exactly what she wanted to do. Unfortunately, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I was in school, by the way, this is my school. This is Bryn Comprehensive School in Bridgend in South Wales. And I was studying in school, and I knew that I enjoyed maths and sciences. I knew that I was good at those subjects, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Did I want to become a teacher? Did I want to go into finance? Did I want to go into engineering? I really didn't know what I wanted to do. So when it came to choosing A-levels, I decided to just choose the ones I was good at and the ones I enjoyed, which I think is probably good advice for those of you who don't know exactly what you want to do, keeping your options open. So I did maths and physics and chemistry because of a love of the sciences. I also did AS levels in computing and in music because I'm also a musician, and in fact I think most of the teachers in my school assumed, because I was known as sort of the music guy, that I would probably end up going into a career of music. But that was the one thing I knew I didn't want to do, in fact. I knew I wanted to keep music as a hobby. So I knew I wanted to do something sciencey, so I went off to university, and again I had to choose subjects to study at university. And I still didn't know what I wanted to do as a career. So I chose maths and physics as a joint honours degree, and I went to Cardiff University. I didn't stray too far. I stayed in my home country of Wales. And I spent 3 very happy years at Cardiff University studying maths and studying physics. And in fact, that's where I also got into doing radio broadcasting by joining the student radio station there. And I did my 3 years, and I graduated, and I did my final exam. And then I still didn't know what I wanted to do. And up until now, this had been okay, because you could just keep saying, well, I'm keeping my options open. At this point, my parents were sort of more like, Rhys, you need to go and get a job now. So I had to make some decisions on what I wanted to do. So one of the options open to me was a graduate training scheme at Airbus. So Airbus has a site in Newport, and I went to a careers fair at the university, and I went around all the different companies that had maths or physics next to their list of interesting subjects, and I went and spoke to them all and tried to work out which one seemed interesting to me, and also which one of those companies seemed interested in me. And in particular, the team from who were manning the Airbus stand seemed really interested in me as a person. They had a graduate training scheme running at the Newport campus, which was just 15 minutes down the motorway from Cardiff, and so I applied for that engineering graduate training scheme. So that was kind of a decision that I was probably going to go into some sort of engineering, but I didn't know what exactly. And in fact, the whole point of one of these graduate schemes, when you get to that stage, is that you get to try lots of different types of engineering out. So I got to work in different projects, do different types of engineering, work in lots of different teams for 3 months at a time over the first 12 months that I was in that graduate scheme. Now, very quickly, I found what I wanted to do, in fact. So it was this stuff. This is lightning, you already know that. And after my first 3 months rotation, they opened a new research lab on our campus at the Newport office. And I went up and said, look, what do you do here? Can I come and do a placement here? And they said, well, what's your background? And I said, well, I did physics. And they said, okay, we've got a team that needs physicists. Maybe you can work with them. So I did 3 months working in a team that looks at lightning. And by the end of that 3-month placement, I knew that that's where I wanted to go back. And the team agreed that I could go back there at the end of the graduate training scheme. So that worked really well for me because I had a fairly quick decision on where I was going to go, which allowed me to pick my other remaining placements on the graduate scheme to make them relevant to what my final job was going to be. And I'm still in this team, so my focus of research now is to do with lightning, which means I find myself constantly saying that phrase. You'll know a very famous phrase by a man called Farrokh Bursara. The phrase is thunderbolts and lightning, very, very frightening. You all know that, right? It's from which song? Bohemian Rhapsody, exactly. And so what I'm asking myself now is that statement real, or is it just fantasy? I'm now going to bring on Callum, who is an apprentice at Airbus in Bristol. A round of applause for Callum, please. Callum, can you tell me first, at what point did you know that you wanted to go into engineering or aerospace? Because for me, it was a very late decision in my life.
To be honest, I'm still sort of midway through that process.
Well, don't tell Airbus that.
The more time I spend at Airbus, the more certain I become that that's what I want to be doing. But even when I was applying to apprenticeships, I applied to a range of industries and fields because I honestly, after A-levels, really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I also, to give you a sort of a breadth of where I was looking, I got this apprenticeship at Airbus to do an engineering degree. I also got an apprenticeship at IBM to be an HR apprentice. So there was a really broad spectrum of things I was looking at because I just genuinely didn't know. But when I looked at all the things and considered all of the options I had, I just came to the conclusion that Airbus was what was going to give me the best opportunities to build a good career for myself.
And why was it that you chose the apprenticeship route, where, and for those who've not come across this before, the apprenticeship means that Callum is studying but also working at Airbus. It means that he's not clocking up that huge student debt. What was it for you that made you go along the apprenticeship route as opposed to a full-time degree route?
Well, apprenticeships weren't really discussed at my school, so it wasn't something I looked at when I was still in education, but when I was sort of looking at what my options were, I came across them, and it wasn't just the saving money. So my 4-year engineering degree is fully sponsored by Airbus, so I'm not paying a penny for it, and they're paying me a pretty decent salary considering I only work 3 days a week at the moment as well. So it wasn't just the money side. The other side was that I'm going to graduate now when I'm about 23 years old. And a lot of my classmates from school will graduate when they're 22, 23 as well. But the difference will be that I've already got 4 years experience in one of the biggest companies in the world. So you hear in the news and in the papers all the time that people are really struggling to get graduate jobs, and it is difficult, but I'm entering as soon as I finish my degree, I'm entering the work marketplace already with a job in a huge company, and I'll have 4 years experience. That means I can really get stuck into a job straight away.
Tell me a little bit about what your current role is then, because again, you also, through the apprenticeship scheme, you rotate through different roles like I did. So what are you currently working on?
So currently I'm working in fuel R&T, so sort of a research area, same as you. So I've been working a lot on, there's a lot of innovation going on in the aviation industry at the moment. So in particular I'm looking at fuels. We all heard about Dieselgate and issues with emissions and fossil fuels and how terrible they are for everything. Well, Airbus are really looking at how we can make sure that we are using the most efficient fuels to power our aircraft. So I've been working for the last 5 or 6 months on making sure that biofuels and synthetic fuels, which are much less harmful for the environment, are compatible with our current aircraft. Because the last thing we want to do is say, yeah, brilliant, this fuel is wonderful, it doesn't pollute nearly as much, and then we put it in the aircraft and it doesn't turn on, like when you put diesel in a petrol car.
And what about your future plans? You come off the apprenticeship scheme. Do you have a guaranteed job in Airbus straight out of that?
The job at the end of the scheme isn't contractually guaranteed, but I think that this is a good thing, and hear me out as to why. If my job was guaranteed at the end of the apprenticeship, I could spend the next, I've got about 2.5 years left, so I could spend the next 2.5 years not putting in a great deal of effort, and it would really upset Airbus, but they couldn't really get rid of me because they gave me a guaranteed job. So it means that I've got to stay motivated, to keep working really hard, and prove that I'm going to be an asset to the team. But at the same time, the fact that I don't have a guaranteed job means that if Airbus treat me really poorly and treat me as a tea-making apprentice...
Which they won't.
Which they absolutely don't. But if this were the case, then I've got no obligation to stay. But it's the two positives that have come together here. So I'm working really hard to prove to the team that I'm a valid member to have around. And at the same time, Airbus puts in a lot of effort to make sure that we feel valued and that we want to stay and build a career in Airbus. So that's why I think it's a better way to do it.
People standing listening to this now who are thinking that they might be interested in going down that apprenticeship route, do you have any advice for them, particularly those in the audience who are probably still in school? Do you have any advice for what they need to be doing in order to give them the best chance of getting through that route?
So I'll try and keep this brief, but there's a few things I'd say. Firstly, if there's a benchmark entry requirement for a scheme, then you can pretty much guarantee everyone applying for it has met that benchmark. So you've got to bear in mind that as soon as you've met the, 2As, 3B, whatever it is to get on a scheme, everyone else is going to have that. So what's going to set you apart is you, what else you do, besides your academics, who you are, what you have done volunteering, extracurricular, all these sorts of things. So that's really important. Secondly, I'd say, like I did, apply for such a wide array of different schemes. Don't just pigeonhole yourself to one area. Give yourself the opportunity to go to a lot of interviews and see a lot of industries and really decide what is going to make you fulfilled and happy and excited to go to work every day.